The cup slipped. Hot coffee splashed across the plastic tablecloth, dripping down the side, pooling under a plate of ribs. My hand darted after it, too slow. I grabbed a napkin, pressed down, tried to blot before it soaked deeper. Around me, conversations paused. Forks hovered, eyes turned. Well, at least now she's contributing something. My daughter-in-law said loud enough to make sure the punchline landed. A few chuckles, then silence. My son stood up. "Mom," he snapped. "Seriously? Can you not go 5 minutes without making a mess?" I opened my mouth to apologize, but he didn't stop. "You're a worthless loser," he said. "You always were." It hit like a slap. Not the words. The certainty behind them. No one moved. I kept dabbing the stain. The napkin bunched up in my fist. My hand shook, I saw it. The coffee had soaked through the paper, turning it soft, useless. I folded it anyway, making neat squares, wiping the rim of the mug like it mattered. I didn't say anything. Not because I couldn't. Because if I did, he'd lose more than his temper. The guests around us, college friends, neighbors, a few co-workers, watched, pretending not to. One of them. Caleb shifted his chair slightly. He looked down, then away. "Just go inside," my daughter-in-law said. "We've got this." I stood slowly. My knees weren't what they used to be. I picked up the cup. A hairline crack ran from the lip to the base. I'd brought it from home. No one noticed. I walked across the yard. The sun was still high. People resumed talking, but softer now, avoiding my eyes. Inside, I rinsed the mug. The crack had deepened. I dried it gently with the edge of my sleeve. My hands still trembled, but not from the coffee anymore. Years of raising him, of scraping by, of showing up. And this is what he remembered of me. I placed the mug on the counter, walked back outside. He didn't look at me. She smiled like she'd won. I sat by the fence away from the table. Someone handed me a paper plate. No one said a word. Caleb walked past me once, paused like he wanted to say something. Didn't. I folded the napkin over my food, ate slowly, deliberately. Every bite a decision. Later, when they started the music, I carried my cup to the edge of the table, set it down gently. The stain on the tablecloth had already dried a pale ring like a bruise. I didn't touch it. I turned toward the gate. The sky was starting to dim. The air smelled like char and sweat. My car waited at the curb, keys cold in my pocket. I reached for the door. The baking dish was still in the back seat. I remembered too late. But I turned back anyway. I knocked twice. Firm, quick. The dish was warm in my hands, wrapped in an old towel. I could still smell the rosemary baked into the ceramic. No one answered right away. I shifted the weight of the dish from one hand to the other. Wind rustled the hedge beside the porch. Inside footsteps. Then the lock clicked. The door cracked open. She filled the gap like a wall. Hair done, phone in hand, eyebrows already raised. "We're busy," she said. Her eyes flicked to the dish. "Next time, call first." Then the door closed. No slam, just a soft final shut. My reflection lingered for a second in the glass before it disappeared behind the curtain. I stood still. One breath, two. My jaw clenched, then released. I turned slowly. Walked down the steps without looking back. Gravel shifted under my shoes. At the car, I opened the back seat and set the baking dish down with care. Pulled off the towel, folded it. Smoothed the edges. My hands didn't tremble this time. Not from shock. From knowing. They weren't rushing. They weren't distracted. They just didn't want me inside. I slid into the driver's seat. Shut the door, exhaled. The silence pressed in. My phone buzzed once in my bag. I dug it out, thumbed to the screen. One new voicemail. Unknown number. I tapped play. A man's voice. Polite, professional. Mrs. Whitmer, this is Joel Stenner from Roth and Pike. Just following up on your inquiry. We have everything ready on our end. Let us know when you'd like to proceed. I listened twice. Saved it. I didn't smile. But my shoulders dropped slightly. A weight shifted, not gone, just moved. The steering wheel felt cold. I placed both hands on it, held still. Through the windshield, I saw movement behind their blinds, shapes, light, voices I couldn't hear. They never asked why I called that lawyer. Probably assumed I wouldn't know how. But I did. I started the engine. The house stood firm behind me. My name wasn't on their mailbox. My name wasn't on their invitations. But it was still somewhere they hadn't looked. I pulled away from the curb. The sky was overcast branches, scratching low across the street. A car passed the other way. I kept driving. The voicemail repeated in my head. Everything ready on our end. At the next red light, I reached over and unwrapped a mint from the glove compartment. Popped it into my mouth. Bitter, first, then clean. I didn't look at the house in the mirror. Didn't need to. I knew they were already deciding how to erase me next. But they'd missed one thing. I still had the original. I placed the tray of deviled eggs on the counter. No one looked up. Laughter rang out from the living room, bright, young, effortless. My granddaughter's voice cut through high-pitched and thrilled. Cake time. I followed the sound. The dining table stretched the length of the room, decorated with glittery streamers, tiny unicorn hats, and paper plates stacked end to end. Every seat was taken. Even the one at the corner had someone's purse draped across it. Except for the chair closest to the birthday girl. That one sat empty. I moved toward it. My daughter-in-law stepped in fast. "That's for family," she said, smiling as if I'd misunderstood. I nodded once, walked to the far side of the room, found a spot near the wall. They passed out slices. I got mine last. I didn't mind. I stood beside the china cabinet, fork and hand plate resting against my palm. I watched my granddaughter blow out 6 candles in one breath. Everyone clapped. My son snapped pictures, held his wife's waist like they were posing for a magazine. I smiled at the girl. Not forced, not fake, just quiet. She ran over frosting on her lip. "Grandma, did you see I got them all out?" I said. "You were perfect." She looked around, then leaned closer. Voice small. "Why didn't Daddy give you a seat?" I blinked once. Bent down. Wiped her mouth gently with a napkin. "Sometimes grown-ups forget things," I said. She nodded, as if that made sense. Then she skipped away. The adults talked taxes. Housing markets, school schedules. I ate in silence. Every bite of cake slow, deliberate. The frosting stuck to the roof of my mouth. I didn't drink the punch. They laughed louder when I wasn't near. I gathered my dish from the kitchen. The eggs barely touched. No one thanked me. I wrapped them anyway. Tucked foil around the edge. Slipped the plate into my tote. In the hallway, someone spilled juice. Her father sighed. Not again. They moved around each other like I didn't exist. On my way out, my son called after me. "You heading home already?" "Early morning," I said. Didn't want to be in the way. He nodded already, looking at his phone. I stepped into the cold. No one followed. Inside the car, I sat for a minute, hands still on the tote keys untouched. Then I looked down at my shoes. Mud on one. Grass stains from the yard. That chair had my name once. Now I didn't even leave footprints they noticed. I started the engine. The eggs shifted in the back seat as I turned the corner. I stopped in the hallway. His voice carried from the living room, sharp and pleased. "Yeah, soon. Paperwork's basically done. Once it's signed over, we're clear." I didn't move. He laughed. The kind he uses when he thinks he's won. "It's just a formality. She won't even notice." I stepped back slow. My heel touched the edge of the rug. Didn't make a sound. When he ended the call, I waited. Counted to 10, then walked in like nothing had happened. He was at the table, folders spread out. His wife stood behind him, one hand on his shoulder, scrolling on her phone. They didn't look up when I poured myself coffee. I didn't ask what they were working on. I already knew. Later, when he went to the garage, I reached for the folder on the table. Just one sheet, a copy. Light paper, cheap ink, the title. My name was missing, not crossed out, not amended, just gone. Replaced by his. I traced the signature at the bottom. It looked like mine at first glance. The slant, the loop on the L. But the pressure was wrong. Too heavy. Trying too hard. I ran my finger along it anyway. My face stayed still. Calm. No heat. No rush. With my other hand, I folded the paper once, then again. Slow. Careful. As if I were folding something alive. Something that could break if I rushed. I set it back exactly where it had been. In the bedroom, I locked the door. Sat on the edge of the bed for a moment. Let the quiet settle. The drawer slid open with a familiar sound. Wood against wood. Inside, wrapped in a blue sleeve, was the original deed. Thick paper. Real ink. My name clear at the top. Alone. I pressed my palm flat against it. Felt the weight. All these months. The comments. The jokes. The chair missing. The door closing. This wasn't neglect. It was a plan. I slid the deed back into place. Locked the drawer. The click was soft. Final. In the mirror, I checked my face. Same lines, same eyes, no cracks. I turned off the lamp. The room went dark, but I could still see where everything was. I'd lived in this house long enough for that. Outside, they laughed again. A clink of glasses. Music started. A celebration before the prize was real. I lay back on the bed and listened. Let them enjoy it. Because if they were playing a game, I knew exactly when to stop pretending I hadn't read the rules. I signed my name, ink pressed into paper. One stroke. Clean. Final. The lawyer didn't rush me. He watched my hand, not my face. When I finished, he reached into a drawer and slid a folder across the desk. Red. Plain. Heavy. When you're ready, he said. I didn't open it. I sat back in the chair instead. Let my spine touch the wood. Let the air move through my lungs. In slow. Out slower. The office smelled like dust and old books. The clock on the wall clicked once. Then again. I placed my hand on the folder. Flat. Firm. My fingers didn't curl. I didn't hesitate. I just rested my palm there like I'd been waiting to do it for years. I brought everything I said. Marriage certificate, deeds, bank access, insurance, the originals. You did, he said, and copies, and timelines. He didn't say more. He didn't need to. I knew what was inside. I'd helped build it. Every document I'd saved instead of thrown away. Every note I'd written in the margins. Every conversation I'd replayed and later recorded when the tone changed. The folder had a label on the tab. Backstop. Not a threat. A boundary. I lifted my hand and slid the folder back toward him. Still closed. Not yet. He nodded once. No surprise. Whenever you decide. I stood. My knees held. My coat slipped easily over my shoulders. At the door, I paused. They think I won't notice, I said. That I won't understand what they're doing. He met my eyes. People who rush usually believe silence means ignorance. I left without replying. Outside, the air felt sharper, cleaner. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment watching cars pass. People moved fast. Everyone going somewhere important. I took out my phone. I didn't call my son. I scrolled past his name without stopping. Past the old family group chat. Past unread messages I already knew the shape of. I tapped a different number. Notary office, a woman answered. Yes, I said. I'd like to schedule an appointment as soon as possible. She gave me a time. Tomorrow morning, I confirmed. Hung up. My reflection in the glass showed a woman who looked the same as yesterday. Same coat, same hair pulled back, same lines at the mouth, but something behind my eyes had shifted. Not anger, not relief. Clarity. I walked to my car, opened the door, sat down. Didn't start the engine right away. I thought of the chair that wasn't there, the door that closed, the paper with my name erased. I rested my hands on the steering wheel. Steady. Then I turned the key and pulled into traffic, already planning the next step. I cleared the plates. One by one, stacked them tight, balanced the silverware on top. No one offered to help. No one stopped me. My son refilled glasses. My daughter-in-law laughed too loudly at something one of her friends said. The baby cried in the other room, ignored. I carried the dishes into the kitchen. Water on sleeves rolled. I scrubbed slow, steady. Behind me, soft footsteps. I didn't turn. The clink of a purse zipper. A breath held. Then the light scrape of leather against fabric. She was checking my phone. I reached for the next plate, held it under the water. She paused. I could feel her watching my shoulders, waiting for me to flinch, react, say something. I didn't. The screen door creaked open again. She walked out, heels clicking against tile. Back to her party. Her voice lifted light as foam. I rinsed the last plate, set it in the rack, then reached for the mug she had just used. Lipstick print. Barely there. A smudge of pink. I washed it slowly, thoroughly, inside-outside handle rim. Polished it dry with the edge of my apron. Set it aside. And smiled. Not wide, just enough. Later, when no one was looking, I picked up my handbag from the chair, opened it casually, checked the pockets. Nothing missing, but not everything was the same. I took out the tiny voice recorder, slipped it into the inner zip pouch. Pressed the button. Light blinked once, then steady red. I slid it back in, closed the bag. At the table, someone made a toast. Something about success, growth, new beginnings. Glasses clinked. I raised mine last. No one noticed I hadn't taken a sip. I excused myself before dessert. Hugged my granddaughter. Smiled at my son. Nodded to his wife. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I drove home with the window cracked. Night air slid in, cool and sharp. At the house, I made coffee. Then pulled out the recorder. Plugged it into the old laptop. Waited. Transferred the audio file to a flash drive, labeled only with the date. I didn't listen to it. Not yet. I knew what I'd hear. The difference between careless words and cruel ones is tone. They never checked theirs when they thought no one was listening. I labeled the file folder sync. Then I powered down the laptop and placed the flash drive into the small box on my shelf next to chair, door, and signature. All quiet. All waiting. In the dark kitchen, the coffee steamed. I stirred it once. Then I sat down and sipped slowly, letting the warmth coat everything they'd tried to freeze. I tore the envelope open. Thick cardstock. Gold trim. The kind of invitation meant to impress, not invite. My name typed in block letters. No greeting. Just the event. Housewarming celebration Sunday, 4 p.m. Come see what we've built. No address, listed just our new home. But I recognized the photo on the back. White siding. Dark shutters. My hydrangeas still blooming along the porch. It was my house. My home. I read the message twice. Then I set it down beside my coffee. Took a sip. Steady hand. No burn. No flinch. The clock ticked once on the wall. Morning light crept across the table. I didn't move. Just let it settle. When the cup emptied, I stood. Walked to the hallway closet. Reached behind the winter coats. Pulled down the fireproof case. It clicked open. Inside, silence pressed into paper. I removed the deed, thick, official, stamped, dated, notarized. My name at the top, my name at the bottom, only mine, no addendum, no transfer, no clause. I set the deed on the table, laid the invitation beside it, one hand on each. They had the paint, the furniture, the party. I still had the ground under it. I circled the date on my kitchen calendar. Red marker, firm stroke. Then I reached for my phone and dialed the number from a flyer I'd saved months ago, catering company, small, local, reliable. "Hello?" the woman answered. "Marcy's Kitchen." "Yes," I said. "I'd like to place an order for pickup, light lunch, 10 servings, something clean, simple." She asked the occasion. "Legal meeting," I said. "Informal." We confirmed the time. I added a note for labeled packaging. Before hanging up, I added one more item to the order, a tray of lemon cookies. Not for sweetness, just habit. Afterward, I went to the bedroom, picked out clothes. Nothing new, nothing meant to prove anything. Laid them on the chair where no one else had sat in months. Then I went outside and swept the porch, the one that still belonged to me. Down the block, cars passed. Somewhere wind chimes rattled faintly in someone's yard. I watched the driveway. No cars yet. No suitcases. No decorations. I checked the deed again, just to feel the weight of it. Later that evening, I slipped the document into the red folder, the same one the lawyer had handed me weeks ago. This time I closed it tight. The label hadn't faded. Backstop. I pressed it flat under my palm. Then I brewed another pot of coffee. Let it fill the kitchen. Let it cover every trace of the lavender-scented candle she used to leave behind. They'd invited me to their celebration, but I knew exactly who owned the door they were about to open. I opened the gate. Laughter floated from the backyard. Glasses clinked. Music played low. I walked past the hydrangeas still blooming and climbed the 3 steps to the porch I planted with my own hands. The door was open. Of course it was. They wanted everyone to see inside. People milled around, drinks in hand. I nodded, politely, stepped through the entryway, and kept walking. No one stopped me. Most didn't notice me. They were too busy admiring what didn't belong to them. She spotted me, first my daughter-in-law, standing near the mantel, holding a flute of champagne. Her smile twitched. It didn't reach her eyes. "You made it," she said too loud. I didn't answer. In the center of the living room sat the coffee table. Wide, smooth, polished. I'd sanded it myself one summer. They'd moved it under a new chandelier, but the wood still caught the same light. My son raised a glass. "To our future," he said. "To building something for our family." People clapped. I stepped forward and placed the envelope on the table. No words, just paper. Their laughter faltered. He frowned. "What's that?" I didn't answer. I sat in my old armchair, the one they once pushed into the garage, poured myself coffee from the pot they'd set out for guests. The mugs were new. The brand wasn't. I recognized the slight crack in the handle. No one moved. He leaned forward and picked up the envelope. Opened it. His face didn't change right away. It took him 3 pages to realize what he was holding. Inside, the original deed. Notarized. Dated. My name only. Behind it, a signed letter rescinding all previous transfer attempts due to fraud. Behind that, a transcript and recording of her voice, cold, clear whispering about how easy it'd be once the old woman signs, and last copies of text messages, emails, timestamps. I sipped the coffee. He looked at me. "Mom." Still, I didn't speak. My daughter-in-law reached for the envelope. He held it out of her reach. A guest coughed. Another looked away. Someone set their drink down too hard. I pushed the folder a little closer to him. Not roughly, just enough. Then I sat back, hand on the mug, the warmth seeping through my skin. The room had gone quiet. Not angry, not loud, just still. Because the weight on that table wasn't noise. It was proof, and I didn't need to raise my voice. They had invited me to witness their triumph. Instead, I reminded them who had built the foundation, who still held the title, who never needed to scream to be heard. The chandelier flickered once overhead. I took another sip, let it settle. Then I looked at my son, just once. He didn't look back. I stood up. The chair didn't creak. My knees didn't shake. I picked up the mug, drank the last sip, then set it back on the table with a quiet click. She snapped first. "This is ridiculous," my daughter-in-law hissed. "You can't just show up and—" "You forged her name, Leah." Caleb's voice cut through the noise. "We all saw what happened last month. Don't act surprised this is happening now." Leah froze. My son didn't speak. Caleb, bless him, didn't stop. "She's not the one who should be ashamed." A few guests nodded. One woman put down her plate. My son rubbed his forehead, still pale, still silent, still trying to calculate a way out. I didn't wait for anyone to catch up. I reached into my bag, pulled out one more envelope, thinner, plainer, opened it, removed the fake deed they'd tried to pass off as truth, walked to the side table, placed it down carefully. Big red stamp across the bottom, invalid. I didn't look at either of them, just smoothed my jacket and walked to the front door. No one stopped me. The house behind me stayed quiet, a silence that didn't feel stunned but exposed. I stepped outside. Cool breeze met my skin. Not cold, just clean. The sun dipped lower. Shadows stretched long across the lawn. I paused on the porch. Waited. Not for applause. Not for footsteps. For once no one followed. The door stayed open behind me, not out of welcome, but from hesitation. They didn't know whether to shut it again. I didn't need to know. The porch still creaked in the same place under my heel. I stepped over it out of habit. Walked to the gate, lifted the latch, and didn't look back. In the car, I didn't turn on the engine right away. I sat. Hands on the wheel, windows cracked. Let it settle. No more yelling. No more begging for a seat. No more pretending I didn't see the looks, the whispers, the lies. They could keep the celebration, the decor, the guest list. I'd taken back something else. The truth, the record, the paper, the silence. They hadn't prepared for that. No one does. I opened the cupboard. The mug sat right where I left it, chipped near the rim, stained slightly inside. Mine. I turned on the stove. Let the flame catch. Water boiled. The smell of ground beans filled the kitchen. No voices, no slammed doors, no fake pleasantries wrapped in sharper meaning. Just light from the window curling along the counter. Cool tile under my feet. I stood still, waited for the pot to hiss, then poured slowly. Steam rose. I didn't rush. The first drop didn't spill. My hand stayed steady. I placed the mug on the table, then reached for the folder beside it. Red, familiar. Closed now, not because it needed guarding, but because it had already done its work. Inside the deed. Stamped. Updated. Final. My name alone. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I took the coffee, sat down. The chair didn't wobble. The legs didn't scrape. I exhaled. Not deeply. Not like I was trying to release anything. Just a breath. A regular breath. I sipped. It was warm, bitter, honest. Sunlight shifted across the table, landing on the paper edge. I watched it move. Let it stay there. Outside, a bird scratched at the sill. A car passed in the distance. Nothing urgent. Nothing meant for me. I didn't check my phone. I didn't replay the party. I didn't wonder what they were thinking now or if they finally understood what they had done. That wasn't my work anymore. This was. One mug, one deed, one morning, and no noise. I took another sip, let it linger, then reached for the rest of the cup and finished it, slow, full, unshaken.